A very warm welcome to the members of the Thinkly community to yet another edition of this Thinkly Talk. Today, our guest is Anshuman Tiwari to speak about how to navigate mid-career blues. So, Anshuman, pleasure to have you over.
My pleasure, Vivek, and thank you very much to the platform. And it's a very interesting platform. I tried it out a little bit, so good work in developing it, and more power to you. Looking forward to this. Let's see what questions we get.
Absolutely. So just by way of a quick background, Anshuman has 25 years of experience in transformation, innovation, quality, and simplification. He's currently the global head of operational excellence at DXC Technology. He has previously worked with EY, HSBC, ANZ, Infosys, all marquee names. He's an ASQ fellow, a LinkedIn top voice, and a mid-career coach. And like he says in his bio, he really loves to share his knowledge, his experience with others. So I think just the right person to have you today. Yeah. So Anshuman, as we kick this off, we'd just like to kind of get a sense, before we start talking about careers and other people's career blues, would love to, really try and understand, about what kind of, made you move in the direction that you went. When you kind of look at your resume, there seems to be this focus towards leadership, operational excellence, quality, and coaching, right? So, of course, you've done your MBA in operation management, so that kind of sets the context. But still, what really inspired you to pursue a career in this specific niche of yours?
So, good question, Vivek, but very boring answer, I would say. like most people, I didn't think of career and all. And today's younger generation amazes me because they're talking of a career at 20, 21, and so on.
Right.
I grew up at a time when we were lucky to have a job, and that was it. So it pretty much started that way. But I think the place where I probably got a little more alert about my career is as I started working, I started asking a question to myself that, is this what I want to do? Is this what I want to do 5 years down the line, 2 years down the line? Those kind of questions. And these were questions, in a way, before they really became very fashionable and popular from a coaching point of view. So I kind of self-coached myself from a very, I would say, less than ordinary start. And then the rest of the career is pretty much brick by brick. You keep adding bricks to the wall, and at some point there is a reasonable wall. So I, in a way, identify with, you can say, 99% of the working population, which hasn't gone to a top engineering school, which hasn't gone to a top B school, but they still have a career. They still have to do the job well, and they still have to build a career around that. So that's me, and that's the kind of people I identify with. So the coaching part that you mentioned is actually more recent, and we will talk more about it. And it also happened more accidentally than anything else. But I have been conscious about it. But the triggers have always been accidents.
Right. No, I think this is something I would love to touch upon later on in our chat. As to careers are typically, like you said, series of accidents, series of choices that sometimes get thrust upon us, sometimes that we do unknowingly, and yet, we have to have that larger overarching goal, as you think about a career. So we'll kind of come down to that. I was just curious, you did your MBA somewhere in late 90s from, in operational excellence. There was this professor who was very popular in quality and operational excellence, Professor Gondlekar. Did he by any chance?
Srinivas Gondlekar. Yeah,
absolutely. Godrej and everything, right? I mean, he was an amazing person. So, did you ever have the good fortune?
No, I haven't. But I met him. But I was never in a class conducted by him. My limited luck. Actually, that time operations was quite a field, and a lot of good professors. Khorgaonkar and of course Gondlekar, several other people. But times are different now.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, he had such a personality that a lot of people in marketing and finance, when we encountered them in the second year, a lot of them felt that they should have probably taken up operational, because that's the impact that, people can have, on your career choices, right? Yeah. So just wanted to understand, how did you turn into a mid-career coach? Just try and help us understand that. And what does it really entail in terms of being a career coach?
So again, a little less romantic answer than what you may have anticipated. I keep telling everybody that the real life is, in between what happens in between two happy photographs. So, so you always see the smiling, happy faces, particularly if you are on social media, active on social media. But real life happens in between those.
True that.
So my life is pretty much similar to everybody else's life. Nothing spectacular, nothing. And I keep only saying that 2-3 words are important, like conscious, intentional. Whenever I landed at something, I started thinking about why is this happening. So the mid-career coaching thing around 2011-12, I remember, I had for the first time, I had a slightly larger team. Till then, I had like 1-person team, me and one, Batman and Robin kind of a team. So I had 15 people in my team in 2010 or 11, around that time. And quite a few people started coming to me for advice and guidance and so on. I believe originally or initially they must have come for furthering their chances for promotion or salary hikes. But eventually I got better at it. And then people from other functions and departments, Vivek, started coming to me. That is when I started asking the question, why is this happening? Why are people coming to me? That's when I started realizing that maybe I'm giving them something that they don't get from their managers. Maybe some sound counsel, maybe some advice, maybe a mirror, and all those kind of things. So I got into that kind of a phase well before coaching became popular. And then 3-4 years down the line, I realized there was something like this. So I did actually a professional course in coaching. I could not complete it, but I did one um, exercise, and I really liked it. I said, "This is me. This is how I have been." Um, so that's pretty much it. And that is the coaching part. The mid-career coaching is more a conscious choice, Vivek. I did realize that I don't have any credentials to coach a leadership team. I am too far away from an early career person. So what is left is mid-career, and if you look at it, people in mid-career have the most challenges but the least help.
Right.
The everybody assumes that they know. Since you have already been working for 4-5 years, you already know. I know nothing, man. I knew maybe more when I started, but those people are actually in need for some help, some guidance, and this is also the most you can say the longest phase with inertia, stagnation, those kind of things. So my time is whenever I do take up any coaching engagement or assignment or such conversations, I do try and address that part of the working population, which is neither very early in their career nor is very late in their career, is somewhere in the middle, and that middle could be 25 years, 30-year experience, and all that. So yeah, nothing very intellectual or romantic about it. Just that a little intentional choice.
Right. And I think the great point that you mentioned was about that you realized that you were making a difference to people's life, and that's when you decided to double down, right? By the way, the whole. Sorry, go ahead.
No, in a way, because and it, now it seems like event, but when it was happening, it was more a progression. It was days and weeks and months. Today, I can talk of it as a trigger or an event in my life or a stage in my life. But like everybody else, all these things happen over a very long period of time, sometimes weeks and months and years as well. And that's where patience comes in. But we'll talk about that.
No, in fact, the chat is like lit up with number of people greeting you and saying hello. So
thank you.
we have a mix of people in the batch. I can make out some people are really in the early part of the careers. You could almost say that they've just started the career or about to. And then of course, the topic for today about mid career. But I think either ways, maybe some advice as to as people start thinking about the career and they kind of think out over the next 2 to 3 decades. as you have to plan. Even if you're starting out, or even if you've done 5 years, you still have around 2-3 decades to kind of think about that, right? So,
Yeah.
what are really your thoughts about, what is it that you would typically tell somebody as they plan their career out over that period? And second question would be, what do you think are the most important skills that you would really, ask people to kind of, equip themselves with as they start thinking about, a career like that?
So Vivek, you will have to remind me of the second question when we get there because I
We'll
will
get there.
forget.
No worries. Let's stay with the first one.
So the very generic advice that I share, and of course, advice is usually generic till I know the context, right,
Right.
or the person. One is pick an area, area that you can become a master in. So that if everything is taken away from you, that one skill should remain with you. On that, I've put a lot of stress. For example, if everything is taken away from me, my knowledge, experience in quality management will stay with me. That cannot be now taken away. I continue to invest in it even now, and that has held me in good stead. Everybody should have that one skill that 2 a.m. in the night, you wake somebody up, give them a board, and they can hold a class or whatever is their trade, right? So
Right.
that I believe is extremely important. So, and a lot of people actually underplay this because they feel that they can jump from domain to domain. It takes 5, 10, 12 years to master something. And by the time you master, you realize there is so much more that you are actually not a master. You're far from it. So the more you
Right.
know, the more you also know that there is more to know.
Right.
So that is number one, that pick an area where you can master, or at least, if not your life, at least a substantial part of your career you can dedicate to it. The second is very unromantic, which I guess is now the theme of the talk, is that work really, really, really hard. I don't like the word smart work or such kind of thing, because it kind of puts people into a zone where they think that, oh, we don't really have to work hard, we have to work smart. That is the problem, right? So smart work is not different from hard work. It is just doing the hard work smartly. That's all.
Right.
And focusing on it. So people are getting away from hard work and believing that they can make it in life without hard work. That is a little bit of a problem. I keep advising everybody that before you have family responsibilities or other similar responsibilities which could take away your opportunities to work hard, give everything you got. So if you are not crashing in your 20s, if you're not crashing on your bed at night and sleep off it like in 1 minute, you're probably not living your day well. So that's the second one. The I think these two would be primary. Third is, of course, build emotional and social skills. Extremely important. So social is outward, emotional is inward. And I talk about this a lot, that eventually there will be a lot of hardships in your career. If you don't have adequate social skills, you will struggle to work with people. People will struggle to work with you, and you can't get anything done alone. So you can't even make coffee alone, because that also needs somebody to get the tea, sugar. So, really in life, you can't really get anything done alone. So you will need social skills, and you will have setbacks. So you will need emotional skills to manage that. I think these three areas I would, from a large body of knowledge, I would probably zero down on, Vivek, that extremely
Right.
important.
So I think you talked about being indispensable. You talked about working hard. And then the third part, you really talk about, emotional and social skills. I mean, those are
Social
really
skills.
the important thing that would probably apply to anybody, at a very general
Everybody,
level.
and I mean, just to add, I mean, when I say indispensable, or you try and define that way, nobody will ever become indispensable, but we all want to
Sure.
work towards it, so
Right.
that we keep mastering, keep getting better, and our chosen field.
Right.
Nobody will
Right.
become the world's best, because by that time, by definition, you don't become, right. So by the time you are there, somebody else is better, and so on. So, but yes, you work towards that.
Right. So there's a question here from Samir. He's saying, "Hello, Anshuman. Pleasure to have you here today. I truly struggle with staying motivated while there's a transition from one job to another. Are there any advices you can give me for me to continue to have the same passion?" So I think it's about transitioning, and how do you really kind of keep the same level of enthusiasm?
So one difficulty, of course, Vivek, is that the same level will never be there because our motivations in life are different. Our excitement about some things are different, right? So it can be higher than the previous one or lower, but that's a philosophical point. So let's keep that aside. In practical terms, sorry, I didn't catch the name. Do we have a name of the person?
Samir.
Samir. Yeah. So Samir, your question is a very valid one, and most people who make a switch in their career or shift jobs struggle with this. And those who talk to me, I always advise or suggest a book. So Michael Watkins' 90-Day Plan, or is a fantastic book. You can make your next move, or he has several books actually on the same topic. But typically, when I work with people in coaching programs, I do say that make a 90 or 100-day kind of a program. So 90 days, 3 months, broadly, right? First month, you figure out who are the people in the organization. So what are the power centers? Who are the people who? Second month, you figure out what does your team do to make things better for the organization. And third, how does your company make money? Now, obviously, these are not compartmentalized like first month do this, second month. You do them together, but you kind of focus on one aspect every 30 days or so. So you essentially make a plan so that you can reach out. You are not waiting for others to reach out to you and so on. So my advice, Samir, would be that make a 90-day plan, stick to the plan. That will bring some excitement because any plan, when you try and stick to it, there is always some excitement that, oh, I have to do these 4 things today. I have to do these 5 things tomorrow. That itself is very exciting. And focus on meeting people a lot. A lot of people make this mistake that they think I'm new, others will come to me. That does not work in any role change. So that would be number one. But in general, focus on people, your function, and then the larger function. How does your company make money? So once you understand how your company makes money, you will be respected in any conversation. A lot of people actually forget this. Oh, I am in HR, so I don't need to know how the company makes money. You do need to know because then your conversation is sharper. Then you bring in that aspect which maybe other will not be able to bring. So those will be the couple of inputs I will give, Samir.
Great. To your last point, there's a nice, saying which goes that nothing happens unless someone sells something.
Absolutely.
So I think a lot of people kind of want to move to marketing and HR, and but end of the day, the organization exists because it's fundamentally somebody selling something to somebody, and I think that ends up being the most important part, right?
Always, I think sales is highly, I would say, ridiculed or a lot of jokes around sales, but eventually that's how the only job any company has is to sell and keep a customer. Sell something and then retain that customer. Everything else has to fall in place. I mean, I'm not a sales or marketing guy, but I always tell my team that number one, if any inquiry comes from the sales team, you have to leave everything and make sure that we give the best response in the shortest possible time, because at the other end, that fellow is meeting a customer. And if that customer signs up, you get your next month's salary. Or, I mean, I'm dramatizing it, but you know what I mean.
No, absolutely. On point there. There are a couple of related questions. One is from Aaron and others by Veronica. Aaron says that my question to you is, what are the common signs or indicators that someone may be experiencing mid-career blues? And I would say a related question that Veronica is asking is that I've been in the same industry for a long time, but I feel like I'm not progressing or growing. How can I identify transferable skills and explore new career paths that align with my interests and goals? I think it's really talking about the whole path about, have I stagnated? Do I need to make a switch? And that kind of a thing.
So the mid-career blues part is actually, it's as simple as when you feel you are in a mid-career blue, you aren't. So, so it is a feeling, right? There are no tangible statements. Vivek and I can be in the same situation, but if Vivek takes it positively and is looking forward to the next day, he will not feel it. If I take it a little less positively or not in the best spirit or assume the victim mindset, then I will feel it. So a lot of mid-career blues situations are about how you feel about it rather than where you are. I have seen people who are doing really well have only last week somebody came to me and she said that, I feel like I'm in depression. And I said, look, depression is a solid word. First of all, if you feel that way, you should not come to me. You should go to a clinical specialist who can diagnose it and advise you. I am not in that category, or I'm not qualified also. But just to go to Aaron's question, I think 3-4 things are definitely there. The feeling of burnout is extremely consistent, right? So you feel burnt out not on a daily basis, but on a week by week thing, right? So once in a week, once in a month, twice in a month, if you feel burnt out, that's normal, right? Which means you are working hard and your company has good use for you. Actually, it's a very good situation because if you feel that way. But if you're feeling daily and that feeling persists for week after week, then there is something wrong, because obviously either the function is understaffed, or the work is very chaotic, or your manager is not very well organized, or you are not very well organized and you can't manage 2-3 things together, and so on. So burnout is the most common one, Vivek, that I get. Most people explain. The other is this feeling of stagnation, which I think Veronica also mentioned. Stagnation or inertia, in the sense that it's a feeling of coasting. So and coasting sometimes can be in a good way, that you are coasting, but it can be also a bad way, that you are just waking up next day and going to office or going to work, and then by the time you realize anything, it's evening, and then the next day comes. So there is no sense of achievement, there is no sense of completion, there is no sense of challenge. When these kind of things happen, then that can be called mid-career blues. So for Aaron's question, the response is that burnout, stagnation, inertia, in a limited way, inertia, right? Inertia can be good as well. But those set of feelings, and if you think you have this, then you have it. So then don't look for some thermometer that, okay, if it is so much, because there is no such thermometer, right? So to Veronica's question, how do you identify skill sets? And so firstly, to everybody on the call, I think being in the same company for a long time is not a bad thing at all. A lot of people are understand the value of the ecosystem. I know a lot of people who at some point got a really good offer and made the move. But they did not realize that whatever they were delivering was because of an ecosystem, and they were very used to that ecosystem. And this happens at senior levels even more. Then they can't carry the ecosystem, and then obviously they can't deliver. So don't believe this just because your friends or colleagues or family members have made the switch and are doing well and have bought a new car. You should also be under any pressure to make the switch. If you have peace of mind, if your career is going well, no pressure to switch. But assuming that you know all this is behind you, because Veronica, I'm assuming that you've asked this question with some analysis. What are the core skills? You will have to ask a few people around you as well. Right? So I can't obviously do this, but I can give you some examples. A couple of years ago, somebody who was in the training space came to me, and we did some small diagnosis and figured out that she'll be very good fit for online. So she's now working as a trainer in one of the leading this online training firms. Now the transferable skill was speaking and articulating. The subject is very different. So what she was doing earlier is now very different. But she was able to bring her transferable skills. So really depends on what you do most of your day. So if you are in a business where you are analyzing numbers and looking at data, you might be able to make that switch. If you are in a role that you are actually in front of people or customers a lot, then that skill is transferable. So what dominates your day or week will actually define where your skill sets may lie. Oh, you can still see me, right? So suddenly the room I am in has decided that, I don't need so much brightness.
No, you're looking absolutely fine. Yeah. Right. Anshuman, great points. But there are a couple of people like Shruti and all have kind of double clicked on this whole point of burnout versus career blues and career change. And
Sure.
there's some other I've seen. Maybe it might be good to just kind of investigate a little more. See,
Sure.
because typically I remember my early days in my career, and they were obviously very very taxing. And there were times when you just felt so burnt out. You felt that what. I need a job change. I need to move my career and all that stuff, right? And sometimes you just realize that it just needed a break. It just needed maybe some time out because with the whole email culture that you have and the 24/7 kind of a thing, right? All you need is probably some time out to kind of know that it was just a case of maybe feeling exhaustion and burnout, and then you're
Yeah.
back with the full vigor, right? Any tips again for people because to try and understand that how do they know that this is actually genuinely dissatisfaction and time for a career switch? Or this is just maybe just a simple case of burnout? I mean, what have you seen in all the coaching that you've done? And I know you've kind of covered it, but I think people are really trying to get to the bottom of that.
So good question. I think you said Shruti, right? So good question, Shruti. I think the most important thing, of course, is that are you alone in that? So if it is happening to others around you, then there is a clear, I would say, symptomatic evidence that this could be a cultural issue. If it is only happening to you, then you need to be very alert because then it could be something to do about you as well. So then it needs a little deeper diagnosis as to why is it only for you? Everybody else around you seems to be doing okay. You are struggling with that, as you said, burnout or other some feature. So that is number one. I think that is true for everything in life, right? So we often assume the victim mindset because we feel deflated or we feel defeated, but we can blame it on the culture only if others also around us are facing the same. If you are doing well, then it could be you. The other, I think, so that is number one way to diagnose. The second also is that is it persistent? Do you feel the same every day, every week, every month? Uh, don't assume one day of hard work to be your consistent pattern. So these two I would apply. I'm a data guy, so I've spent all my life in quality. I would diagnose it as, is it only you? Is it all the time? So those two questions you ask yourself and get the answer, but be honest in that answer. Many people actually sidestep the issue, and there is a little bit of a psychosomatic approach to this as well. Anything that is being shown on TV or Netflix or something, I have that, somebody has
This
a
is
headache,
me.
and I assume that I have brain tumor. I mean, I'm over dramatizing only for effect, but I have full respect for anybody who has these issues. But 99.99% chances are that's not the case. So that's why I use the word psychosomatic with some responsibility, because it can be a little difficult for people. Sorry, I'm trying to fix the light thing that went off. I figured out what happened.
Actually, Anshuman, it's perfect.
Oh,
really
okay.
not a problem. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Shruti's
yeah.
answer typically just that, is it you? Is it every day? So ask those questions and you'll be fine.
Great.
And sorry, Vivek, sorry, I'm interrupting you again, but
please go. No,
but
not at all.
This this very quick way to jump from I have a problem, I need to change a job, has to go away. If you have a problem today and the solution is change your job, how many times will you change your job in your career? It is not possible. You might not get a job. So please be resilient, tough, school of hard knuckles. There was no obligation when you didn't sign up on a paper when you signed up for your job that it will be rosy and cushy and everything will be nice and you'll get a brown bag lunch every day. I don't mean to, this for the person who asked the question, but in general, I'm saying that I get this a lot. And surprisingly, Vivek, we think that this must be coming from youngsters. It is not. It is coming from people in their 30s and 40s, which is even more surprising. if youngsters were to ask this question, I could still understand, because maybe they've had a slightly
immature.
better life,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
maybe had a life of more amenities than you and I grew up with. But they are actually more hardworking. It is the people in their 30s and 40s who are asking this, which is puzzling. I don't have an answer, but I know the problem.
Right. Right. So moving along, when you talked about people in the 30s, right? I mean, and there seems to be a pattern nowadays, right? I mean, because people are typically in the workforce by 24, 25 after the MBA or the degree, and they spend 5 years. They've started to move towards middle management, right? And
Yeah.
therein, comes a fork in the life where typically people are really questioning that, is this the time I should capitalize my 5 years of work experience and jump to let's say another job, where I could probably run a P&L. There's some people who are looking at, maybe the switching industries. And in some cases, people are actually contemplating making a switch to becoming an entrepreneur. You have especially in today's time, you have lots of people in the early 30s, late 20s becoming entrepreneurs, right? Uh, how do you kind of, advise people when they come to you with this kind of, because this is obviously a very fundamental, shift that they're going to be doing, jumping a job, maybe just switching an industry, because they're just able to capitalize, let's say, the skill sets, like we used to happen, like, with anybody from, let's say, levers would be a great person to jump to any company, be it telecom or whatever,
Yeah.
because he could eventually, it's a factory of CEOs in that sense, right? And the third one is, of course, either joining a startup or starting a startup, right? Uh, how do you kind of, navigate people through that?
So I do get a bit, but to be fair, Vivek, I think this is also the romance of the startup world, that, obviously the only advice
Yeah.
I give to people who come to me with a startup idea, or the desire to start up, is that, are you solving a problem?
Yeah.
So that is a very big question. Don't put the cart before the horse. If you have a genuine problem that you are solving, it is worth a try. So definitely, today capital is available. Today people are available who could work for a good idea. Um, and I, from an industrial history point of view, Vivek, I do think that this culture was always there. When
Mhm.
you and I were growing up, I think the biggest startup was this tuition teachers. They that still exists, right?
Solopreneurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the solopreneurs, or small entrepreneurs, you can say, and every corner had so many kirana shops. Who were they? They were startups. Right?
Absolutely.
It's just that they did not scale up to become a Geo, or a Byju's, or a Vedantu, or other things, but they were running their house pretty well, and not
Right.
only their own house, but maybe sometimes a large family as well. So this extra romance about startup and solopreneurship is a little misplaced. The words are new, but the concept is not new. But coming to your core question about this whole thing of what do I advise? I do advise certainly that please find a clear problem that you are solving. Or please define that problem clear, and why are you the person to solve that? Very rarely, of course, it does happen that a completely unrelated skill set will solve a completely unrelated problem. Usually, it will be a skill set that is relatable. Who will solve that problem? So, I mean, how many times will a Bhavish Agarwal do an Ola? Uh, and by the way, that Uber model was already existing, so it had to be primarily quote unquote copied or adapted. Same with Flipkart adapting Amazon models, right? So these are ideas that were waiting to happen and could be done. Now, if you want to replicate that, it is very, very difficult, because that problem has been solved broadly. So that's something I give. The second, of course, I keep explaining to people about financial, stability.
Right.
That in trying to create your tomorrow, don't burn down your today.
Yeah.
If you have the stability, if you have the staying power for a year or maybe 2 years, or you have another income in the household who can manage the household income for 2 years, then sure. But if you don't have that backup, it's a very serious question. Then why should you do it? And look, the and we all, any idea, small, big, whatever we think of is the world's best idea. So then, and what if it doesn't? turn out to be the world's best idea. So then you will need all the practices of perseverance, patience, staying power, XYZ, all that. You will need all that and a lot more. So these are two areas I'd speak to people that, what is the problem you're solving and why are you the person to solve it? If that answer is convincing, by all means. Second question is about financial stability. If you don't have financial stability and you are in a life phase where you need that stability, then it's an important question to be answered. So that way, the best phase to startup or an entrepreneur is in your 20s or mid 20s or in your 50s, mid 50s and more. The period in between is dangerous, slippery territory.
Right. No, great points. In fact, especially the focus of a lot of people is more about the first part that you answered, right? I mean, can this solve a problem? Can this turn into a unicorn? Can I become a billionaire? I mean, the romance of the startup is what excites the people. But honestly, sometimes not enough thinking goes in the second part, right? I mean, really about the financial stability, what's going to happen. And I remember, when I jumped in this 15 years back as an entrepreneur, I remember me and my wife speaking about this. We'd actually gone on a weekend getaway just to plan me quitting, my job at Microsoft to do this. And we said, okay, you know what, we'll figure it out. Ek ded saal ki baat hai, and you never realize it was actually ended up being a 7-8 year journey before So you obviously have to plan for those eventualities, which I think a lot of us don't really end up doing a good job with, right? No, great points. Just shifting a little bit, from there. People, when they start thinking of a mid-career, and especially if you look at the whole culture of MBAs, I mean, in our time, it was something that you just did. You did your 12th, you did your graduation, then you do your MBA, and you get on, right? Nowadays, obviously, with all the MNCs and the kind of jobs opportunity that you have, a lot of people actually decide to hold on to their MBA. They kind of, after the graduation, they get into the workforce. They join a corporate life, and then they kind of think about doing the MBA maybe after 5 years. And that's how some of the West B schools also encourage, I mean, the criteria for some of them in the US is like that, right? But I think the question that people then struggle with is, when is the right time to do that, right? And honestly, is an MBA today as relevant as it was, let's say, 10 to 20 years back? Because the cost impact of an MBA can be significant, because some of the best schools, you're talking about, putting aside $100,000 to $250,000, even more, depending on the college. And secondly, you're talking about, the opportunity cost of maybe 1 year or 2 years that you'll be away from the job, right? I mean, so what are your thoughts about that, and how should somebody really think about it? Now, of course, having an MBA from a great college, there's obviously a different angle to it. But yet, I mean, again, trying to put your filter of pragmatism around this would be nice to hear.
So in a way, I mean, what you said, I completely agree that, the costs can many times overweigh the benefits or potential benefits. So like many things in life, MBA is a potential benefit that you are purchasing. And the word potential includes the possibility that it may not turn out to be that way. So the difficulty I have with youngsters or anybody else who wants to do an MBA is they want a certainty. Kitna guarantee hai that this will get me a job, so that does not happen. I mean, I was speaking this morning today to somebody who reached out to me, who wanted to do an online MBA and wanted the benefits of a full-time Ivy League MBA. That's not going to happen. So, why are you thinking, and the cost will be one fraction of this. So if it was that smart that, you can do this at the fraction of a cost and yet get the benefit of something, millions of people would be doing that. So, this illusion that we are smarter than everybody else and we figured this out actually is a problem. Coming to now your core question around MBA, so I do feel that certainly that the from a career point of view, the allure of a MBA that was there 15-20 years ago is not there, and it's a good thing. It probably is pushing people to do something because MBA by nature, by definition, makes people think that, oh, you no longer have to do anything, you have to just be a manager and then settle for life. So which never happens, by the way. You and I know It doesn't happen that way, but that's the temptation. So people going back to doing something by their own hands and using their skills will be back in fashion, or should be back in fashion. At the same time, I still think that a top school MBA will still hold value, because particularly in countries where supply is significant. So when supply of educated labor is high, there needs to be a filtration mechanism, right? And an MBA is a filter mechanism in many situations more than anything else. So it kind of filters people up and say that, okay, I have 200 people for this one job, and how do I filter? Okay, apply MBA filter, MBA from ISB, MBA from IM, 200 becomes 10. Oh, okay, 10 I can manage, I can now interview. That's how the world works, actually. I mean, so you know, I know, you know, most of the time there is no major difference, but the filtration aspect is very important. Secondly, when you go to these top schools, the network you create, the mafia you generate is useful. And then you also get into that habit of working really, really, really hard. So you have just finished an assignment at 9 p.m. and you have another one at 7 a.m. Doesn't happen in any other place. So you get that habit. So in summary, I still think that if somebody has the potential to crack the entrance for a top MBA, even if it is expensive, it might be worth it. So of course, if it is a top MBA, it will be expensive, because that's how the world works. So don't then look at the expense, assuming that you have the financial, wherewithal to manage it. That's what I would say. But to its own. It's a complex situation, but certainly the allure is no longer there, and it's a good thing, because more MBA should be a slightly exclusive degree by definition. If everybody is doing an MBA, then it has zero value or limited value, I would say.
I believe, I think from the time you and I might have graduated, with our MMS and PGDBA in the late 90s, I think by early 2000 had gone from 7 colleges in Bombay to around 120 plus. So that's exactly the
most of them are gone now.
Yeah, they're all gone now. Thank God for that, because so I think some great points. I think that obviously a top Ivy college or a top Indian school probably still makes sense, but I think for everything else, I think they've got some pretty good online courses, some very good hybrid courses nowadays. And I think they're probably as good as having to actually jump away for a 2-year. They're probably as good as that. Unless you really.
And there are modules also today, Vivek, and which was not there in our time. There are modules, so you can do maybe 2 sections. I did last year. I did through another. This was online platform. Not last year, the year before that. During the pandemic, I did something from which was a combination course from Columbia, TUC, and MIT. And sitting in India, I did not have that access otherwise. But because this was all combined and given in a affordable package, I did an online thing, and I quite enjoyed it. It was a design thinking and innovation program. It was a 9-month program, so neither an MBA nor a diploma. But at that point, I said, look, I do need to learn a little bit more in my space. So I did that. And it was you can say part MBA or whatever. But that option is available today.
You enhance your skill set. And I mean, that was the end goal.
Yeah. And
absolutely.
I wanted to go the best in class, so whatever is available globally, because my role is global. I've been in global roles for a while. So I did want to see what is out there in the world and in terms of what is best. So yes, that option is today available, which wasn't there maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Right. And I think especially like you said, the whole hybrid, focus right now, live, on demand, and in person, and a combination of all those three. And I think coming up with pretty interesting option, which doesn't necessarily make people having to decide about quitting the job for the next 2 years and, really starting off from behind, So great. There's another question, in fact, when you were talking about MBA and you're talking about the certainty, it really was, people went through a painful time, right? I mean, people who graduated in the batch of 2008, 2009, right after the pandemic. I mean, they obviously went through, not pandemic, I'm sorry, the financial crisis that happened, right? The global financial crisis. They obviously were struggling, and you are unfortunately seeing a repeat of that happening in some sectors right now for the batch coming out now, right? The intake for some of the large tech companies has come down. They're going back on their offers that they made to the people, and that. So the fact is that you'll never be able to guarantee and have certainty. You always need to have a plan B, no matter what it is, because sometimes the situations are much larger than what you are really trying to, deal with. So to that, there's also, I would say, an add-on question from Sunanda. She's saying that, look, as you go through different stages, you have to sometimes change your goals and your needs. You have to adapt, you have to kind of play with that, right? And you have to go through disappointments, because you can't expect that you'll have a 25, 30 years of career, which will be completely, stellar, and, whatever, everything will fall in your way, whether it's your job, whether it's your entry level job, whether it's a promotion. How do you kind of, help people think about, the setbacks? And do you have anything from your own personal challenge that you could kind of share, that how you dealt with a setback and you bounce back?
Oh, every day. So I think this is that shiny object
You're
syndrome.
going to make everybody feel good on this channel right now.
This is that shiny object thing that we only see the outcome and not the process, right? So
The biases that come in, yeah, absolutely.
and you kind of assume the journey and not study the journey, because if somebody and only last week I was speaking at an MBA school, about 350, 400 people, students in the audience, and I did say that I don't want you to grow up with Steve Jobs and Elon Musk as your heroes, unless you have the IQ level that they have. So, and if you had the IQ level that they have, you won't be in this class. So you would be already making something, right? So I know it's a harsh way of reminding students, but that is how life is, right? So everybody sees Bill Gates as the founder of Microsoft, but he was, escaping from his house, going to the, university computer lab, coding when other children were playing, video games. And when the opportunity came to write DOS, he was ready. So that happens across our careers, Vivek, and I'm sure you have seen as many as I would have seen or more. So I keep encouraging people that when you meet, your so-called role models or people who you admire or aspire, do ask about their failures. What are they struggling with? Their success, everybody knows. I mean, I get this question a lot. Like, I'm a top voice for now 3 years on LinkedIn, right? I had zero clue how I got there. Yeah, so they selected me, right? So I'm still doing what I was doing back then. I'm sharing what I know. I'm trying to help people. I attend such talks and make sure that I can share my experience and guide. That's all. That's all it takes. Now, but to answer the question specifically, I think Sunanda asked is more that please remember that everything that you see as successful, is a diamond that has come out from a coal mine and has been fired from all sides and has gone through. I have had so many setbacks, that including being fired. So at the peak of my career, right? So I would love that the peak of the career is still there, another peak waiting, but and I took it as I was already in the role where I was firing a few people every quarter. Right. And I have no shame in using the word firing, because that's how we have to normalize that word, because it is not sometimes because of performance. It is not because of anything else. It's just a cost decision many times. And so I told myself that, Anshuman, what right do you have to think that you can't be fired when you are firing others for the same reason? You have zero rights, right? So I took it that way. I found another job, moved on, did well. So I think this should give some comfort that the person speaking to you today as a career coach or a guide or whatever you can call it, also has been through the same thing. And I've had more failures in my career than successes. And I'm sure everybody else who comes to this channel will have no different a story. So please look at the failures, limitations, challenges people have. Uh, Not to say that, you should not have the ambition. You should, of course, have the ambition. You should try for success. You should work hard. But knowing what people go through will probably make it a little bit more normal, and you will be able to deal. I spoke at the beginning about that emotional point, that is social and emotional skills. So social skills are outward skills and emotional skills are inward skills. How do you deal with such situation? And it will happen, including being, literally quote unquote abused in front of hundreds of people, or being incompetent and so many other things. That will happen. And if you can't deal with it, too bad. Somebody else will deal with it and get the role. So if you want to stay in the workforce, learn to deal with it in a positive way, right? Not in a victim way, in a victor way is something I can share.
No, I think I think great points on this. Especially I think the what you talked about. Normalizing firing and normalizing layoffs, right? I mean, because unfortunately, I think India, or fortunately, India has been kind of sheltered from all of that for many years. But lately, we've been seeing that happening out here, and I think we have to accept that as a new normal, right? Because you can't be so different, and as MNCs become large employers out here, you see the same thing happening out here, and now you see even the Indian companies, which traditionally never did this, also doing these layoffs, right? So it's going to be a part of life, and I think we just need to learn to take it in a stride and bounce back, right?
It is, Vivek, also the other way to look at it, and is that we want the salary that the Western world gets. We want the perks that they get. We want the 4-day week that they get, or whatever. We want the beer at work that they get, and X, Y, Z. But we don't want this to happen. That's not going to happen. It is a package deal. So you get this and you get the other stuff as well. So if you don't want this, then probably work in a country where you will get 1/4 of the Indian salary, and the job will be very, very secure. So I explain to people this way, that this is a package deal. We are all in this together. Someday it is you, someday it is me.
Right. I think drop our sense of entitlement when it comes to stuff like this. Absolutely. There's an interesting question here. I thought you would love to. I'm sure you've touched upon these points, but I thought you might particularly like this question from Desmond. He says, he said you mentioned the essence of TIQS, transformation, innovation, quality, and simplification. I mean, as a part of introduction, how can these principles be applied to help professionals navigate and thrive in their mid-career phases? So do you see yourself applying technical skills to
in a way, yes. And I'm so who asked this question? I didn't catch it. Desmond. So thank you, Desmond. You were very attentive, especially at the beginning. So this is the TIQS part, or the TIQS part, is more a term I have created, Vivek, just to explain who I am and what I do. Right. I found that the normal words I had were not adequate for explaining, so I created this. Now, definitely, some of these principles, particularly quality principles, any of these principles can be applied. For example, a very important principle in quality management is Pareto principle, which is about 80-20. So how can you get 80% outcome from 20% effort? We all know that, and that is called smart work. Right? So you do less, but you can manage more. So that's one way to apply this principle. The other is, for example, in quality, there is this principle of planning, plan, do, check, act, or also called as, set the standard, control, and improve. That's what we do in everyday life, right? So if you are running a marathon, or you are doing anything else where there is a skill, I would say, hierarchy, you would set a standard, you would work towards that. For a month, you will try and meet that standard, and then you will feel, oh, this is now easy, so I can get better. So you will either increase the weight or mileage or whatever else you are doing in life. You will increase the standard, and that pushes you to now reset the standard. So this happens at work as well, depending on the organization you have and the nature of work. You will set the standard, and then you will look at complying to the standard, and then improving the standard. So yes, all these principles, most of these principles do translate into life. And in some of my coaching that I do bring in these principles in a career point way. So Desmond's point is very right. Actually, this can happen, Vivek, to everything in life. So if we, most of the aha moments come when you use a principle of one domain of knowledge and apply it to another domain. And you will see most of the Nobel Prizes also come when you transfer one knowledge into another. So a lot of chemistry professors win physics, and physics people or multidisciplinary kind of things. They do win. I'm not saying we are Nobel Prize level people, but I'm just explaining that this happens all the time in life. A lot of these aha moments come when you are able to pick something from one area and apply it to another area, and that's a superpower. If you can do that, so I do, to answer Desmond's question, I do use some of these two examples I shared. There are more, but keeping time in mind, I think these two, Pareto principle and the Juran principle, that I use.
Right. And I think coming towards a close, your perspective on this idea of work-life balance. Is it a myth? Is it doable? And how important is it to really focus on this? Any tips on that would be great.
So early in your career, Vivek, this is complete nonsense. So anybody looking for work-life balance early in their career, please don't. This is wool in your eyes. If you work as hard as you can, I already said that if you are not falling in your bed and sleeping off in 1 minute, um, you've not worked hard enough. So, but this is early in your career, right? So this is where you are building mastery. This is where you are building some domain. This is where you have the opportunity. You don't have family responsibilities. You are not the sole breadwinner, XYZ. This is your opportunity. This time will not come again in your entire life and career. You will not again be 22, 25, 28, ever. So,
Right.
so that is point one, that early in your career, when you're trying to build mastery, please don't fall prey to this stuff. I can use harsher words, but but I'll be more professional, and I only say second, as your, of course, life stages, cycles, gets forward, you will feel the need, and it is important to have some level of balance in your life and career. And when I say life and work life, obviously non-work life, right? So work is also life, but we spend 1/3 of your working day, more than that sometimes. So work
Yeah.
is also life, I say. And if you don't have friends at work, then you please reevaluate what are you doing at their whole day. So if you can't make friends, but that's another topic. But coming back to the core topic of work-life balance, so yes, you will need that, but again, don't overdo it, right? Please find those days so that you there will be days where you are needed for 14 hours at work. Please have that stamina and the mental agility to do those days once in a while, because you will also have to set the role model for the youngsters in your team, that, oh yeah, if he's asking us to be available, then he himself is also, or he or she is also available. But yes, there will be, and the other part of Vivek is also that, as you grow in your career, you have by now figured out a few things. So for those few things, you don't need to work hard. You can help others get, and then, but there will be some things where you will still need to work hard, because those are the skills you're developing. So when you're developing a skill at any age, please don't fall prey to this um, work-life
Right.
balance thing. It is, the word used these days is integration, which is probably a result also of the large number of people working from home. I don't particularly like the word, but at least it is better than the work-life balance part.
Mm.
So I'm not a big fan. When you have to work hard, you really have to work hard. Uh, Nothing happens uh, other than, and most people who sell you this work-life balance pill are either themselves at a pub and you are working hard. So why? So I am in that work hard, you can say, wagon
So you're basically saying take the red pill always.
always.
There's no blue pill which just takes you down a garden path.
I mean,
So take the
in Matrix it was, but not. uh, I
yeah.
mean, see, there is always so much to learn, Vivek, that and not, you don't learn anything by just reading a 2-page summary of it, right? You have to read a book, you have to do a course, you have to do something, you have to work hard, you will make mistakes. And then you see, oh, okay, I get it now. So it's hard work. Life is hard work. And human beings as a race have progressed over chimpanzees and other species because of this ability.
Absolutely.
So, of course, the cognitive ability to communicate, ability to introspect, think about what we are doing, all this is also important. But along with this ability to persist on something, if an early human would not have found out how to tie a rope to a bucket or a bucket kind of thing and take water out of a well, we would still be doing what the chimpanzees are doing, and many other things, or fire, discovery of fire. So there is a value in human race is built around persistence and hard work, and I would shudder to think that if we stop giving it that premium that it deserves, what will happen?
I think great perspective. I think hard work is definitely a virtue, especially in the early part of your career. And then, of course, you really, if you really want things to work out your way, I mean, you can't just sit back and have a sense of entitlement that you sometimes see, with the I would say the younger folk for sometimes. I think we all, like you started off in your talk, you said we grew up in a time when jobs were scarce. Because hanging on to a job, getting a job was the most important thing, right? And no, wonderfully. I really enjoyed Anshuman. It was a thrilling 1 hour. I really just want to congratulate on the great work that you're doing. That apart from working, you're actually helping people navigate the career. We didn't have career coaches, 15, 20 years back. Nobody to really bounce off, the real issues, right? I mean, and you could only talk so much to the HR, right? Because HR was always an inside man, right? And
oh,
you
yeah.
never really
they would be making notes.
copious notes out there, right? So I think it's wonderful what you're doing, and I really enjoyed it, right? So Anshuman, thanks so much for taking the time out to spend over an hour. I really appreciate it. There's so many questions I just couldn't do justice to them. If you have the time, just go back to our business and finance community on Thinkly, and maybe you could just reply to them, and if required, we'll have you back. Would be wonderful.
No, anytime. I'd love to be back, and like I said, I was telling your team as well that I'm looking forward to this conversation, and it is only incidental that so many other people can also listen to and benefit hopefully from this. So love talking to you, Vivek, and more power to you and Thinkly. And anytime you need me again, I'll be around.
No, thanks so much. And next time you're in Bombay, do look us up.
Sure. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.